Ecosystem services are simply the services that biological diversity, that vast and amazing array of plants, animals, and microorganisms, provide to humans. Some services that plants and animals provide are really obvious, like grains and meat. But ecosystem services includes a whole lot more than food. So I'm going to take you on a short journey to some of the natural places where I derive ecosystem services. On weekdays, I walk to work, and I start out through the woods behind my house. And later on, I often take a small detour so that I can hike through Cornell's spectacular gorges. And on weekends, I jog, and I even have my own special place in a gorge where I work out. So believe it or not, I do box jumps, lunges, push-ups, and a whole bunch of other crazy exercises in a crazy place with water running by. The beauty and calm of this place means a whole lot to me. In essence, on my walk and during my workout, I'm enjoying the cultural ecosystem services provided by nature. Cultural ecosystem services are things like recreation and aesthetic experiences that nature provides humans. But in the summer and fall, as I harvest the tomatillas, the jalapeno peppers, the okra, and the crookneck squash from our vegetable garden, I'm reminded of other ecosystem services, ones that are easier to put a dollar value on. So my family and I are really lucky because we can grow all our own vegetables in our urban backyard garden. And we also cut, haul, and chop wood from nearby forests. And during the winter, we burn the wood to heat our home. So food and fuel are what are called provisioning ecosystem services. I used to enjoy the peony collection at Cornell's public garden. So I was pretty upset when the flowers were uprooted to create a new visitor center and parking lot. But the amazing thing about the parking lot is the artificial wetland that Cornell created to mitigate the runoff from the new pavement. In just a few years, the plants in the wetland have flourished and they've filled in the channel that drains the parking lot and surrounding walkways. So the wetland provides a regulating ecosystem service. It regulates water that runs off the parking lot, and thus it prevents flooding and sequesters contaminants, such as the oil that might have drifted off the cars. By composting the rotten tomatoes or cabbages and other waste from my garden, I'm recycling nutrients. In this way, I'm helping to provide a supporting service, nutrient cycling. Supporting services, not surprisingly, support other ecosystem services. So for example, nutrient cycling through composting and applying compost to the soil supports fruit and vegetable production, a provisioning service. So sometimes artificial wetlands like the one at the Cornell Public Gardens are created through civic ecology practices. And there's this really wonderful example from the Bronx, where youth at the community organization, Rocking the Boat, constructed a 30,000 square foot wetland along the Bronx River. The wetland treats 10,000 square feet of parking lot runoff. So in ecosystem services parlance, the youth at Rocking the Boat created a green infrastructure, that is the artificial wetland, that helped to regulate the water. But in fact, civic ecology practices create all kinds of green infrastructure, like dune restoration projects that rebuild sand dunes for coastline protection, or a Korean village grove restoration project that rebuilds a small forest to protect the village from the wind. But civic ecology practices actually do more than simply create green infrastructure. For civic ecology stewards, cultivating a rainwater garden, or taking a boat out to drop an artificial oyster reef into a river, or even repairing a woodland trail is a form of recreation. So I like to think of civic ecology practices as providing ecosystem services in two ways. One is indirectly, by creating green infrastructure, like gardens, dunes, or small groves of trees, that in turn provide ecosystem services. The green infrastructure created by civic ecology practices can provide all four types of ecosystem services: cultural, provisioning, regulating, and supporting. The other way that civic ecology practices provide ecosystem services is directly, and it's limited to cultural ecosystem services. This is because the act of stewardship, whether it be gardening, planting trees, or restoring dunes, is itself a form of recreation or a cultural ecosystem service. In other words, civic ecology practices create green infrastructure, which in turn provides multiple ecosystem services, and civic ecology practices are also a form of recreation, which is a cultural ecosystem service. So let's explore in more depth ecosystem services. We'll learn about how the notion of an ecosystem providing services that benefits humans was developed, and some of the controversies surrounding the idea of viewing nature so instrumentally, as simply there to provide for human needs, and even putting a dollar value on the services that are provided by nature and biological diversity. And we'll explore the way that civic ecology stewards are trying to provide ecosystem services and some of the barriers they face in trying to measure whether or not they're achieving their ecosystem services goals.